What's going on, guys? So, Meteorite, but this is a Shattered Stars Meteorite build with Starfall Cornet. It's really strong. I liked how it played. It actually played pretty smooth. I wasn't having to spam my teleport around. I was just kind of moving around with a lot of good movement speed. But there were a lot of nerfs going into this season, and we may see more nerfs with Hydra here. So keep this one in your back pocket. Meteor's going to be really strong. It's going to be S or A tier for Sork. There were a lot of nerfs, so that nice Belial kill is actually indicative of a lot of strength. I predict this build can do around a T95 to a T100, gear dependent, and it'll just depend exactly how much QOL, that quality of life, that you want to get rid of. So Meteor, or I should say Meteorites, is supposed to be an S tier build for Sork next season. It's incredibly strong. You can scale up the Meteorite damage so incredibly high, and without further ado, let's get into it. So I opted to not run Teleport Enchant in this build, so this is just the setup without it. Starfall Coronet now turns Meteor into a cooldown skill, and when you cast it, it casts 4 meteors instead of 1. You get a lot of ranks to Meteor on here, and you're looking for a 2.5 second cooldown on it. Next is Shroud of False Death. Because we have grouping from Inferno, we don't need Raiment, and honestly, fuck that chest. You are so tanky when you're running Shroud of False Death, and then you can get a lot of all stats on here, and the +1 to passives is great. Flash Fire is amazing. 45% crit strike damage with pyromancy skills. Yes, meteorites are pyromancy skills. We'll take ranks to core. And yes, Meteor is a core skill, and meteorites scale off ranks to Meteor. So you'll get more attack speed and crit chance here, and some teleport. And some teleport Nova size for another part of the build, but don't concern yourself with it. Tibalt's Will here for 40% damage reduction while unstoppable, and then 20% damage while unstoppable. And with the Tranquil Stone, we'll have permanent uptime on unstoppable. Orange Herald to help reset the cooldown of our Inferno so we can permanently spam it. And then ranks to Meteor and Armor are the biggest things on here. You're really going to need the Armor roll because there's no other way to get Armor in the build. And then you'll have to run the +300 Armor. You'll need to run the +300 Armor Incense. Shattered Stars. Meteorites fall around Meteor. Your Meteorites gain 100% of Meteor's damage, doubled when on a staff. The biggest thing on here is the chance for meteorites to deal double damage. It's just like you get like 2x damage from triple critting this. It's fucking crazy. Next is Armageddon. So meteorites fall during Inferno. They'll immobilize. And then when Inferno is active, our ultimate down here, our meteorites deal 540% increased damage because this value is increased when on an amulet. Int, Dev Blaze, and ranks to Permafrost give a ton of damage, and we can get an Inferno CDR temper on here. So this Armageddon is the sole reason why we scale the meteorites and not the Meteor, because where the fuck is Meteor going to find this 540% damage? Nothing can compare. So Telrasha's Loop for 75% damage and a fat amount of cooldown. And then Stormswell for 35% damage when we have Ice Armor active, another 15% against Frozen. We could round it out with some Int, attack speed, crit chance, you know, all the fucking goodies. Some Pyromancy attack speed, and another Inferno CDR temper. All right, so let's talk about our skill bar. So obviously Meteor in a Meteor build. And then we have Inferno here. So Inferno applies Vulnerable. It pulls enemies in, and it gives us 50% Pyromancy damage while it's active. Ice Blades and Ice Blade Enchantment are the crux of the build, and they're what enable you to permanently spam Meteor despite it being a cooldown. So TLDR, you get 3 Ice Blades off the skill bar. You can get another 3 off the enchantment. They have like 2 separate buckets, so you get 6. And say you have 6 Ice Blades chopping, they will reduce Meteor's cooldown by 1.8 seconds. So it'll be 0.6 seconds for the 6 Ice Blades chop. And then because Meteor has 3 charges, it applies to each one at the same time. So 0.6 times 3, 1.8 seconds. So you only need to get your Meteor cooldown down to about 2 seconds or 1.8. I had mine in 1.33 in the video, and I was ripping. Next is Teleport. We gotta cast a shock skill for Telrasha, and the movement's amazing. You gotta have it in your build somewhere. Next is Flame Shield. I don't leave home without this shit. I love it. If I load into a bad pit, you know, I get some fucking barrier snakes or some knights. Teleport, Flame Shield the fuck out of there. And I like sitting in boss mechanics and not having to move. We already went over Ice Blade Enchantment, but this build is running the Enchantment Master Legendary node, so we have to take a fire enchantment somewhere. So I just take Meteor, and it kind of fucking sucks. I'll be straight up. This enchantment isn't that good, but it's more meteors, and there's really nothing else to take. All right, so for our runes, we have Yule, Quacks, and Igni Thul. TLDR, cast 8 cooldowns, get 100% damage for 1 second. This enables us to activate Shimmering Ice Armor to reduce its cooldowns. and then it enables us to get 40% damage reduction out of Mana Shield. And then Igni Thul, so, we're just going to passively generate Offering, and then when we cast the skill, we'll get a Frost Nova, Freeze, applies Vulnerable, and we'll deal 15% more damage to anything we hit. Important for Storm Swell, and it's important for the Hoarfrost passive to get damage out. Compared to boss powers, these Heridric spells, the Arcana, the infusions, and the gems, they're pretty shit. But give me back boss powers. Just keep them for another season. But we're going to make the best that we can. So we're running Smoldering Ember. It's our infusion. Basically, we're going to get like 800 to 1,000% additive fire damage out of this. Don't really ask. It has to do with us being able to actually use our fire damage bonus instead of just the additive fire damage that we get. It's just some like stupid tooltip shenanigans. I digress. We're running the Cosmic Anomalies. Every 5 seconds, you're going to get this little glowing anomaly guy who follows you, and then when you cast Inferno, you are going to send him to his death. He's going to go and hit an enemy and explode. When he explodes with Bloody Charm, he's going to execute enemies and give you 20% attack speed. Execute enemies below 20% life. He's going to deactivate that pesky DR aura on monsters, and then he's going to grant you Unstoppable so that we can abuse the life out of Tybalt's Will for the DR Unstop and the damage. So the reason we have it on Inferno is so that we can use the Myriad Stone after you cast your catalytic skill, which is Inferno. Inferno becomes your catalytic skill. After you cast it, if it's an ult, you get 30% attack speed for 10 seconds. We're nowhere near close to cap 1 to attack speed cap, so we're getting full value out of this. Scornful Light is just an auto slot. You deal 20% more elemental damage. You take 10% more. We're so tanky. This is basically Glass Cannon. And then last but not least, Idol from Below. So you get some primary stat, you get some max life, and you're always unhindered. These are great, but this could not have any of that, and you would still run it. It's because you're hunted by these Jewel Guardians. So the Jewel Guardians are just 3 elites that spawn, and it sounds like they put it in to annoy us, like it was a negative thing. But it turns out when you're doing the pit and you're killing 3 elites and then another 3 elites just happen to spawn on you, it's a really good thing because then you kill 6 and you get a lot more pit bar progress. So, pit fishing just got even more extreme because people are going to be fishing for like some big fat Idol from Below procs, but I don't know. So yeah, these are the powers. We got an Execute, we get rid of DR auras, we have permanent Unstoppable, we get more fire damage. We get attack speed, we get more damage, and then we get more elites to spawn in the pit. That's it. All right, so let's look at our skill tree here. So 2 points in Firebolt just to progress. We need 4 points here to progress, so we put 3 in Potent Warning and a throwaway point in Elemental Dominance. This doesn't affect our Meteorite damage. Next, we're moving on down to our defensives. 1 point in Flame Shield, 3 points in Teleport. That's all we're able to afford, and then we get Shimmering for some damage reduction. I opt to not make Crackling in this build. It's just annoying. Glass Cannon for damage, and then Shimmering Ice Armor for a nice barrier with the Ice Armor, and then with the Quack's Rune, we can reduce its cooldown by spending mana. That brings us into Mana Shield, where, again, spending mana. Friendly reminder that we have Shroud, so +1 to all passives. D4 builds doesn't update that. You will get 40% DR. Then we have Primordial Binding. This helps us get our mana regen and some movement speed because we're going to have 6 Ice Blades out so that we can keep spending mana for our Quack's Rune. We'll go for Protection for a 40% max life barrier. And then I don't exactly know if this is either Summoned or Roaring Ice Blades. D4 builds is like not fully updated. It's been a season, but it's still not updated. But 20% of Enhanced Blades cooldown reduction is applied to your other skills. This is the whole feedback loop thing with reducing your Meteor's cooldown. I max out Meteor, go for Enhanced Meteor, and then Mage's Meteor. Your Meteorites will immobilize because of Armageddon aspect, but if you want more stagger, you can run Wizards. I like Mages because I like to see them fall faster. Then we go for Inner Flames for damage while healthy, Devouring Blaze. You should end up around 10 ranks, 10, 11 ranks of this with the ranks on your amulet and stuff. This is your most important passive here, 10% damage per rank. Icy Touch, damage to vulnerable. Permafrost, just another damage passive. And then Hoarfrost, damage to chilled and frozen. That's sort of why the Thol rune is important. We're going to max out Inferno here. Enemies within Inferno are continually made vulnerable. There's a pull, and we get 50% damage with Pyromancy skills. Elemental Synergies gives us more damage. Evocation, CDR. Pop down here for Soulfire. We'll get 8% damage, and then if we manage to stand still, that'll double up to 16%. Last but not least is our key passive. No, I don't want to run Enlightenment. I'm fucking tired of this thing, and I need the crit chance from Ace's Ferocity. So when enemies have above half life, we deal 75% more damage. When they have below half life, we get 40% crit chance, and then if we hit a boss or kill enemies with a crit strike, we're going to get all the bonuses for 3 seconds. So typically when you're, doing farm content, 5-minute pits, you have permanent uptime on this. But the second that you get into some like really top tier pushing pits, it can fall off on some of the elites because they'll just take forever to die and all the mobs around them are dead. So it brings us into why we really want Bloody Charm here, so that we can get an execute to sort of help alleviate some of the the downtime of this passive. So for our Paragon, on the starter board, we're going to run Tactician, 15% damage, another 10%. We'll go into Searing Heat. Searing Heat's important because we get 12% crit strike chance, and then we get another 60% damage out of it. We'll pop down here and we'll grab Destruction. Crit strike damage, another 12%, and another 14% damage. Fundamental Release, by simply applying Vulnerable, Burning, or critically striking, we'll get 50% damage. This board has a lot of quality of life in terms of damage reduction, damage where healthy, and max life. And we take Flame Feeder on here. So we'll get damage to burning targets. And then it's not this. They haven't updated it. The additional bonus is actually just 10% X non-fizz, not this direct damage bullshit. And the legendary bonus is another 10% damage. So Enchantment Master is where we take Pyromaniac. Rare Node Booster, 18% damage with fire, and then another 10% with fire. The Enchantment Master Legendary Node is why we have to run the Meteor enchantment. So our enchantments are 30% stronger, which means our Ice Blade, instead of 40 seconds of cooldowns we need to spend, it's 31 or something like that. And then instead of an 8% chance for Meteor to fall, it's like 11 or 12. So let's get back into the Paragon. But the reason that we need the Meteor enchantment is because for each equip enchantment, we get 40% increased damage with that element. So this build, we're getting 40% with cold and 40% with fire. So we need to have at least one. We've got to have Ice Blades. So we need to have at least one fire enchantment there to get to not just be throwing by taking this node. And then last but not least, we'll go into Frigid Fate. For Elementalist, it's a rare node booster. We're going to get 15% damage out of here. We deal fire damage with our meteors. We deal cold damage with our ice blades. They're chopping. We deal lightning damage with our hard-casted teleport. And then that's why we have this teleport Nova size on the... Oh, my face is getting in the way. But it's why we have the teleport Nova size on these gloves, so that we can hit more enemies with it. Oh, my God. I hate this website. Oh my God. There's so many ads. Anyway, so we're getting 15% damage out of here. We're getting 10% non-fizz, and it's a rare node booster. And then we get 60% damage out of Frigid Fate. Our mercenaries are really simple. We take Subo. Subo is taken purely for the Seeker. He's going to reveal all enemies in the area so that you have permanent map hacks. You'll see little orange dots on your mini-map. And then there's just a little added bonus that, every so often, he'll fire this cover fire. It'll hit a bunch of enemies, and then you'll deal 25% crit strike damage for a few seconds from it. But it's not too big of a deal. And then I run Altkin as my second for Field of Languish. So whenever I cast my Ice Armor, or probably, every 2 or 3 Ice Armors should drop this Field of Languish, and enemies will be slowed in it, and they'll deal 20% less damage.